Collins. 30 minutes. Show with David Collins.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of David Collins' 30-minute half-hour show. I'm your host, David Collins, and we got a good episode for you today. I'm kind of looking forward to it. It's a little off the beaten path since, first of all, we do not have a guest today. Unfortunately, I happened to catch COVID the last few days, so we had to push my big guest back another week. Just trying to be safe. I even considered wearing a mask for today's episode, but I think I'm kind of past the worst of it now. A little bit of housekeeping before we get into the show. I just want to continue to thank everybody who's been emailing. After last week's show, we even got a few people sending in their answers to the games. A lot of you did a really good job, so keep doing that. Once we get things back on track next week, we're going to be taking advantage of some of the emails today because they say if one person sends an email, that's 40 people who decided not to. That being said, some of you have gone ahead and written me and asked me some questions over the last few months or weeks especially. So we're going to be getting into the most popular of those today. Before we really get into the show, of course, color of the day. Today, an exciting color of the day, we're looking at mahogany. Color of the day today, mahogany. So if you're out in the world and you see mahogany, remember, that is today's color of the day. One more thing before I forget, remember, if you want to write into the show, get a voicemail played on the show, or just participate in any way, you can send anything to dc30minutehalfhour@gmail.com. That's dc30minutehalfhour@gmail.com. One of the reasons why you might be reaching out to us this week is we're actually going to be starting a process of getting either an intern or a producer, or maybe even a co-host on the show here. So we're going to start taking in applications. So make sure you're sending in your resume and a description of yourself if you're interested in taking advantage of that opportunity. If you've worked in radio before, you're interested in getting in with the business, this might be a good place to start. So definitely consider that. Another thing that I forgot to mention last week, shout out to Manhattan High School and their successful production of Mean Girls. Just wanted to give them a little shout out. Good job, guys. Home of the Indians. Today's sponsor of the show, I'm happy to have these guys on board. Wildcat Pawn and Jewelry. They're located at 2309 Tuttle Creek Boulevard in Manhattan, Kansas. Why pay retail when you can get what you want for a lot less? With many items available for sale at all locations, stop in, shop, or check us out on online at capcitypawn.com. Don't pass up something that's attractive today because you think you will find something better tomorrow. Shop now and save now. Thank you, Wildcat Pawn and Jewelry. Wildcat, of course, being the name of the college football team's mascot, keeping it local. Good for them. Wildcat Pawn and Jewelry. So like I said, today's show, we're going to be reading some of your emails and going over some of your questions. In doing so, we're also going to be taking a look at some of the highlights of my radio career, because a lot of these questions do have to do with kind of my last 10 years on the radio. And we might even bring up and talk a little bit about those college days. We're going to go ahead and start with this email from Sandy from Ogden, Kansas. Among other things, eventually she asks, what is the most outrageous or unexpected thing that's ever happened to you while on air? Well, Sandy, as many things as there are that can catch you off guard when you're live, I gotta say one of my favorite moments was during the month of Earth Day 2017. In April of 2017, I came up with a bit that I like to call Water Me the Tree for Earth Day. Now, although this isn't something that specifically happened to me, it did happen to our stunt guy while I was on the air. So hopefully, Sandy, this qualifies to your question. But we did this bit called Water Me the Tree for Earth Day, where we took our stuntman and we dressed him up like a tree and we sent him out in the town with a watering can, trying to get people to water him for Earth Day. What happened next was pretty outrageous. Let's go ahead and play that clip.
1015 K-Rock.
1015 K-Rock, David Collins here. Happy Earth Day, everybody. Most of you already know how much this holiday means to me. Boy, do I love the month of April. We're doing a fun bit today called Water Me the Tree for Earth Day. Rex is downtown Manhattan right now talking with the fans and inviting people to water him. So if you find yourself next to that tree today, pick up the watering can and give him a few drips. Do we have Rex right now? Good, there he is. Hey there, Rex. How's it going down there, man?
Okay, hey, so this is how it's going, David. I'm downtown with my watering can, in my tree costume, and my K-Rock sign, just trying to get some people. Well, hey, here comes someone. Hey, miss, would you like to water me for Earth Day? Yep, yeah, there you go. Just use the watering can. Hey, everything seems to be going well here, David.
That's great. Well, I'm glad it's going so well. Sounds like you're having a lot of fun down there with the public, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, man, how would you like to water me for Earth Day? Could you back off, sir?
Rex?
Hey, what are you doing?
Hey, what's going on over there?
Well, David, this guy's exposing it. Hey, dude, stop it.
Is everything all right?
Man?
Rex,
Dude,
what's going
stop.
on?
He's peeing on me, David.
What? Peeing on you for Earth Day? That's outrageous.
1015 K-Rock.
That truly was outrageous at the time. Thanks, Sandy, for reminding me of that story. As great of a moment as it turned out for radio, not a great moment in that homeless man's life. Of course, after exposing yourself in a public park like that, the cops were there pretty quickly, and he spent the night in jail.
You are an idiot.
That was a pretty good bit, though. We might have to bring that back this year. Coming up on Earth Day pretty quick. They say time flies when you're having fun, am I right? All right. Well, this next email doesn't say who it's from, and I don't want to give out their email address out here, but it does say that they have been a long-time listener, so thanks for continuing to be a fan. They ask, of all the famous people or celebrities that you've met or encountered, who are the coolest to hang out with? Well, I'll start by answering your question, but when I think of the famous celebrities that I've met, there are some newsworthy moments that we've been a part of at 1015 K-Rock, and I appreciated being a part of those at the time. When it comes to the coolest celebrities to hang out with, that would have to remind me of when I was a senior in college. Shout out KSDB. Now, at the time, these weren't big names that were coming into town. In fact, I can only remember one of them, but he was the coolest. We had these comics coming in from out of town, and we were going to get them on the college radio station and talk about the show. It ended up being Mark Normand himself. That night, he did a show at Stanford & Sons Comedy Club, and after the interview, he asked me if I wanted to open for him. Now, I hadn't done comedy before that time, but I went ahead and I prepared and I wrote a few jokes, got up there on stage, killed for my first time ever doing comedy. It's something that confirmed something deep inside me that knew David Collins' voice needed to be out there for the people. Not only was it a great interview, not only did it lead to me learning something about myself and having this great moment in front of this huge audience, but the next day, Mark Normand was nice enough to take me out and teach me how to ollie. I'm not sure if I'm speaking out of school here, but a lot of people don't know he's a bit of a skateboarder too. Pretty good. Taught me some things. Now, of course, that's got to be the coolest story that I have about hanging out with a celebrity. But the most impactful thing that I think I've done in my career, not a lot of people know, K-Rock 1015 was one of the first stations to interview climate activist Greta Thunberg. I was able to talk to her on September 2nd, 2018, a day after a New York Times article came out talking about her strike. And as great as some of the moments in my career have been, I don't think anything tops the pride that I felt after this interview. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
I bet that squirrel was confused. Another story this week you may have heard. When you picture Sweden, you probably think cold. Well, one little girl is doing her best to try and keep it that way. 15-year-old Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg isn't just playing hooky. She's calling it a school strike for climate. Every day for 2 weeks now, Thunberg has been sitting quietly on the cobblestones outside Parliament in central Stockholm in order to bring attention to the climate crisis. I am doing this because nobody else is doing anything. It is my moral responsibility to do what I can, she says. I want my politicians to prioritize the climate question, focus on the climate, and treat it like a crisis. Well, we here at 1015 K-Rock know how to prioritize and know how to focus. On the line with us right now is Greta Thunberg. Hello, Greta. Thank you so much for talking to us today.
Hi. It's very nice to meet you. It's an honor to meet you, and so I'm just very happy that we managed to arrange this.
I feel the same way. I'm not sure if you're a fan of K-Rock, but I've been a fan of yours ever since I read this story.
No, well, I think everyone is grateful for you for taking on this I hope you understand how much difference you have made, and that we are all very thankful for that. So thank you, and thank you for dedicating your life to this, and it's very inspiring.
That is so nice. But don't try and butter me up too much. Now, I don't mean this to be a gotcha or anything like that, so please don't take it that way. But you've talked a lot about what you try to do to help the climate. One of those being that you don't eat meat. Is that right?
Of course, when you're a child, when you're like 8 or 10 or 11 years old, there is not much that you can really do to make a big difference. So then you start small. I started with turning off the lights at home to save energy. And that led to another thing, which led to another thing. And eventually I stopped flying. I became vegan and so on.
Right. So the meat thing. You call yourself a vegan, but there are these rumors speculating. This sounds ridiculous, but I have to ask. There were these allegations about frogs, that you have a history of stomping out frogs at the park.
I would say that it's very understandable to feel overwhelmed, because the things we're talking about, the things we're dealing with, are existential threats to humanity, unlike anything the world has ever seen before. So it's very understandable to not know exactly where to begin and what to do about it.
I'm sorry, are you saying that you do go to the park and stomp on frogs?
Yes.
Okay, and how do you respond to people that say you bring them home and make hats out of them?
I crochet them. Yes, that's what I do. I'm a frog hat factory.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you, Greta, I did not expect you to say that.
I am a part of a very large group of people who have done it, and you are definitely a part of that group too. So it's not just me.
All right, Greta. Well, we've got to wrap this up here. Any final words you'd like to leave our audience?
I don't know why people are listening to me. I don't know how long it will last. I just know that right now people are listening to me, and I need to use that opportunity and to try to get out as much as I can during that time.
1015 K-Rock.
And we're back. You know, I don't think I'll ever forget that moment of history. I think that's also when I began to get my reputation as a bit of a hot interviewer. We got to see a little of that too last week, talking to a different guest about certain hypocrisies. And hopefully we'll continue to see that in the future too. She was a nice lady though. Greta too. Anyway, I wanted to take a quick break here and just remind everybody, next week we're excited to have our long-awaited, long-anticipated comedian as our guest, Austin Ingalls, from the Eastern Iowa area. He's somebody that's headlined multiple clubs around here, so we're really looking forward to talking to him about comedy. So go ahead and make sure that you're sending in any questions you might have, any voicemails that you might want to play for him, to dc30minutehalfhour@gmail.com. For those of you just tuning in, today we're just answering questions from our email box and going over some of the highlights and even some of the lowlights we'll see of my radio career. We just talked about a few famous encounters and newsworthy moments. Brian writes, also, if you believe this, Brian says that him and a friend are actually listening from San Francisco, California. So great to see. If you'd believe it, sounds like we're reaching a pretty wide audience in a pretty wide area. Brian writes, what was your favorite part of being a part of a radio station? Great question. Beyond it being a great creative outlet, the events that you get to participate in are so much fun. From joining K-Rock friends and family to dress in costumes at City Park and do the Harlem Shake, or facilitating challenges like the Don't Be a Douche challenge. That's when 3 K-Rockers poured vinegar on their heads. A few of these could still be found on the K-Rock YouTube page. Unfortunately, of course, none of the events that I was a part of are still on there. They've seemed to have all been removed. Their loss, if you ask me. But beyond those things, the events you get to participate in, it really is about the people that you get to work with and the professionalism that you're constantly surrounded by. I pulled this next clip that we're about to listen to. It's nothing special, and the quality is actually pretty rough, the recording. But when it comes to radio, to me, if there's anything I like more than a current events news break, it's a great radio tease. Let's take a listen.
You are about to hear is not designed to scare you.
Tomorrow's K-Rock Morning Show, chock full of all kinds of goodies for you, including 2 robbery attempts gone so wrong. One guy left empty-handed and without his pants on, and another dude in Russia tried to rob a store and got hit upside the head with a, well, I guess you'll just have to listen in tomorrow to find out. That stuff and more tomorrow on the K-Rock Morning Show.
It's the K-Rock Morning Show, weekday mornings on 101.5 K-Rock. Life hack number 42. For all the rock that rocks, keep listening. And to improve your rocking experience, just add volume. 101.5 K-Rock.
And you know, Brian, to somebody like me, to answer the question, what's the best part about working at a radio station? I think that clip really sums it up. All right, on to this next email. Now, this one again, unfortunately, again, I have no one to say who it's from. Don't want to read your email out. Remember, give me a name or say where you're from so I can shout you out on the show. But this person asks, in your career, what is the most heartwarming or emotional moment that you've ever been a part of on the air? And of course, there would be a lot of good answers to something like that. We've talked to families that have been in times of need and hosted charity events and fundraisers. We've done many events that help the community grow in different ways. But when I heard the word heartwarming, the first thing that came to mind was January of 2019. It's not very often that you get to see something like we saw on that day. And I think for this one, I'm just going to play the clip and let it speak for itself.
101.5 K-Rock.
It's 101.5 K-Rock, and here we are live on Fremont Street. We're at the City Park annual local ice skating expedition. Out of my last few years of covering this, I have never seen such a crowd of each of these talented performers performing for friends and family out there on the ice. Earlier, when you guys checked in, we got to see Sally and the Sallyettes with their routine. Now we're going to be watching Alan Jackson make Manhattan history today as this event's first ever blind ice skater. No doubt about it, this should bring a smile to everyone's face. The crowd is quieting down now as Alan begins his routine. It's not often you get to see someone with a disability out here on the ice. Here he goes. He looks confident. I'll tell you guys, I'm sure he's already doing better than I could do. Whoa. A few times he's hit that wall, it's looked unintentional, hoping he's able to find his bearings after these spins. But it's so inspiring to see someone conquering adversity at events like this. It really warms my heart. Back to you, Sloan.
Wow. It almost brings a tear to my eye just thinking about it now, hearing it again. And he actually ended up placing third in that whole competition. A lot of talented people out there in Riley County. Now, we've talked about a lot on the show today. We've had some laughs. We've talked about controversial subjects. We've provoked a little thought today. And maybe after that last clip, we've even cried a little. But we're going to have to get a little serious right now. Because this next email concerns something that we've brought up in the past, but I haven't really addressed personally on this show yet, so we're going to have to do that now. Somebody wrote an email, and they heard it get brought up on one of these episodes here, and they just wanted to confirm. They said, "New listener here. Didn't hear you exactly mention what did get you fired or taken off the air from your last job." Now, over my years on the radio, the biggest time of year for me is April. Not only for Earth Day, because you tell how much I love those events, but it's April Fool's is my favorite holiday of all. The things we do in college would be crazy. It's nothing that we would do today. And over the years, I've become much more tempered. And things don't get like they used to be. But in 2022, there was one joke that, according to my station, was a little too far. And after that, I was permanently suspended. Now, I would never apologize for this April Fool's joke. Seemed like a relatively clean joke if you ask me, but you'll have to be the judge. We're going to go ahead and play the clips. So the first clip here that we're going to be listening to takes place in January 17th, 2022. This is where I laid the groundwork for this great April Fool's prank that I came up with. Finally, we'll play the second clip, and that will be from April 1st of 2022, where I unveil the prank. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
101.5 K-Rock.
101.5 K-Rock, 11:15, a nice clear Monday out there. But you're going to want to grab an extra layer because it's getting a little chilly to start the week. Today is January 17th, 2022, and we're celebrating Martin Luther King Jr. Day. Monday, the 17th of January of this year, marks the 35th year of the celebration that was introduced to remember King's lifetime of public work. Today we mark the birthday of Martin Luther King Jr., the chief spokesperson for nonviolent activism in the civil rights movement, which protested racial discrimination in federal and state law. And I personally feel his words are more and more important year by year. If the protests over the last few years have showed us anything, it's that we're still hurting and healing as a country. Not a lot of people know this, and I've never spoken about it publicly. Not because I'm embarrassed, but it just never seemed appropriate. Well, my grandfather on my father's side was actually 100% black, and that makes me 25% black. So as we sit in our day of remembrance and celebrate how far we've come as a country, remember, K-Rock listeners, I'm with you, brothers. .115 K-Rock, that was Gone Away with the Offsprings. You've been listening with me, David Collins. It's coming up on the 3 o'clock hour, so I'll be getting out of here soon to begin my weekend. Now, some of you have been calling in and asking, and I'm sure more of you listening in are all wondering, David, don't you know what day it is today? I know I've got a bit of a reputation for my April Fool's gags over the years, so this year I really wanted to make sure I fooled as many of you as I could. The bomb was set and the fuse has been lit. April Fools! Some of you may remember back in January of this year on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, I told you, my audience, that my grandfather was black, and thus I was 25% black. In fact, listeners, I am not black at all. Happy April Fools, everybody, and have a great weekend. I'll be back with you Monday. For now, how about a little Metallica with Turn the Page?
So there it is. Thanks for asking the question. I'm sure with this new audience, a lot of people are going to be wondering, and I have nothing to hide. Maybe it's not the best joke. I thought it was pretty good, but fireable? You guys can decide. Email me your thoughts at dc30minutehalfhour@gmail.com and tell me what you think about that. If you have any voicemails that you want to have played on the show or have any questions, go ahead and send me an email there also. Now, those are all the clips that I decided to pull today and I thought we'd talk about. We're running out of time here and we're coming to the end, but I thought just for a little fun, we would play one game today. We can't get through a show without playing one game. And of course, next week's show with Austin Ingalls, we'll be going through a regular show. We'll have our 3 games. We'll interview Austin, get to learn a little bit about his opinion on comedy and what he does around the area. And of course, we'll be talking about some of the current news because missing a week in current news is almost like missing a month if you think about it. The game that we're going to be playing today is called Wheel of Fruit. We're going to go ahead and spin a wheel. On this wheel has a variety of different fruits, and I also have a variety of different fruits next to me here. Whatever that wheel lands on, we're going to pick that fruit. I'm going to take it out of my basket here, or the plastic bag, depending on which fruit we get. And we're going to go ahead and see if you can guess what fruit that is. We're going to bang it against the table, and you're going to have to guess what is that fruit from the Wheel of Fruit. Hope you guys are ready to play Wheel of Fruit. So let's go ahead and spin that wheel. Go. Oh, it's not that. So let's see. Coming up. Oh, maybe it's coming back. Okay, let's go ahead and see here. So we got our fruit. We're going to take this fruit and I'm going to hit it against the table and you guys are going to have to guess what is that fruit. Give it one more shot here. Now give it a little thought. Think about what could that fruit be. And it's probably not a pineapple. It sounds smaller than a pineapple. But go ahead and think, what might that fruit be? The answer was a pear. For those of you who guessed pear, great job. The answer was pear. Perfect. So we've reached the end of today's episode of David Collins' 30-minute half-hour show. Thanks for listening. Remember next week, guest Austin Ingalls, comedian. Also remember to send in your applications if you're interested in maybe interning on the show or making your way up to some sort of position here. We're definitely taking those applications right now. And trying to grow the team. One last thing before we end the show. There was an abrupt expletive used on last week's episode that one person specifically emailed me about. I'm sorry that offended you. You may expect those to come up in the future, and if one of those slips really gets to you, might not be a show for you, might just be a little too edgy. But we'll go ahead and see you next week for the month of March. I've been David Collins, and you've been the best.
David Collins. 30 minutes. Show with David Collins.